Hey minions, welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and on this episode of King of the Hill, I want to talk about the governor of your graveyard, the Cardinal of the Clerics. I've seen a lot of comments that players do not like the Clerics, and I'm not entirely sure why. I think they are a good support faction, but you have to play them in a particular way, and the Cardinal is a large part of that strategy. More than most factions, I would say that not having access to your Cardinal would give the Clerics a very difficult time. The Cardinal has the talent to grab 2 random cards from the discard pile and add them to your hand, but only if your discard pile has at least 5 cards. The concept of randomness has been in Smash Up since the beginning, but it was usually in the form of an attack. I must admit, usually I find cards involving randomness to be underwhelming, as I have no control over what I want to happen, and I may end up wasting a card or making a situation worse. I generally assume that the randomness will work against me. But with the Cardinal, things are different, and in order to utilize his ability well, you need to approach that ability from a number of angles. I was originally going to make this a very mathy video, but that doesn't end well for anyone, particularly me if I were to make a mistake. You could focus on playing the odds, but instead, I want to focus on the fact that in Smash Up, there is not really a concept of a bad card. Sure, some cards are better than others, but card advantage means that, in most cases, having cards is better than not having them. I think there's a bit of an illusion with the Cardinal's ability. The larger the discard pile, the less likely you will get what you want, but if you have a large discard pile, it generally means that the game has been going on a while. I also think that there are more better cards in the game than worse cards. If you view the 2-powered minions as being worse, they represent only 40% of your minions of your factions. So the odds are in your favor that the cards you draw randomly will be above average, regardless of whether or not you want a specific card. In fact, I don't think you should ever rely on getting a specific card. One of the advantages of the Cardinal is that you get to effectively draw 2 cards before playing your minion or action. So you can do this first, before you start playing your cards, but banking on the Cardinal to draw the appropriate cards is like betting on mass enchantment to flip the perfect card. It could happen, but it probably won't unless it's happening against me, which is seemingly always. The Cardinal should never be part of your big drop, but rather the reason to make many big drops. Smash Up is a game of efficiency, a game in which cards are currency. One of the reasons why zombies are so strong is because they let you get your best cards back over and over again. But conceptually, the Cardinal has more recursion than the zombies and can do so as a talent. So the Cardinal incentivizes you to use as many good cards as possible on the promise that you'll get them back eventually. If you have concerns about getting a specific card, the best thing to do is to ensure that it happens. I think you need to watch your discard pile carefully. The Clerics actually have the means to do this in a single turn, but you need to think of a turn like a rebuilding turn. Let's assume that there is one card you either don't want or don't need right now in your discard pile of 5 cards. Your Cardinal can grab 2 of the 5, so now there are 3 left. You can shuffle a card into your deck with Holy Roller, this being the card you didn't want, so now there are only 2. Now you can play Collection Plate to take 2 random cards from your discard pile into your hand, which is conveniently the only 2 cards left. You just guaranteed yourself the 2 cards you wanted, plus more. As far as repeating this combo, one of those 5 cards is now Collection Plate, which you may not necessarily want back. That means that you have a greater chance of getting the card you actually do want, or getting the card that gets you the card you actually want as an action. When the second Collection Plate goes into your discard pile, you are a talent and an action away from having access to your best cards again and again. The Clerics themselves have ways of managing your discard pile so that it stays roughly around 5 cards. The deep FRIARs are great because they keep your minions out of the discard pile, including the Cardinal himself. If there are cards you'll want to recycle, these are a definite candidate. As I mentioned before, the Holy Rollers, as well as the Turner, can strategically whittle off a card to mitigate your randomness. Just be careful that the Turner doesn't randomly select the minion you wish to place into your hand. Of their actions, 3 of them are play on something cards, including the very powerful Been and Gone. 2 of them are the collection plates that help after the Cardinal talent is used, and many of the rest are conveniently situational, meaning that they'll stay in your hand. Cards aren't necessarily bad, just situational. Even you, word of recall. Managing the size of the discard pile is one way to mitigate the randomness, but another way is to consider the content rather than the size. It's true that, as the pile grows, you have less chance to get specific cards, but this can be solved by being intentional about what is in your discard pile. Factions with high density of cards really shine here. Ever since Dagon came about, I find myself running out of locals quickly, and it makes my Sacred Circle not as useful. But with the Cardinal, I'm liking my chances that I'll get a locals since 1/4 of my deck is the same card. Even though the on-play ability may not do anything, I still get to utilize my extra minion plays. I also like the Cardinal with the Rockstars who have 5 groupies. It becomes another way to get them back into your hand, and the Monarch can help you if you miss. Both Innsmouth and the Rockstars have the card draw to help you get to your Cardinal, which will enable your engine in the first place. Minion Star factions also shine here as well. I'm constantly feeling like I'm burning through my powerful mimics, and I'd be less worried about self-destructing my shapeshifters if I knew I can get them back with Cardinal. It also helps that I'm adding to the size of the discard pile to bring it back up to 5 and begin using the Cardinal again. With this minion, overpayment of good cards hurts much less because you can get at least some of them back, which really helps factions like Princesses and Vigilantes. For my final thought, I want to point out that the Clerics, who absorb the discard pile, came out at the same time as the Mages, who inhabit it. The Mages have some powerful abilities, but at the cost of cards. Cards are currency after all. The Cardinal basically gives you $2 to work with every turn, and that excels with the Mages. You can destroy a minion every turn with Blaster Master. You can play an extra card with Wand Whiz. You can go nuts with some Enchanted Evening. Instead of thinking about cards for what they do, think about them for what they are. Cards. In the same way, Cardinal provides great recovery for ghosts and can even let you use Cream Puff Man's talent on the turn it is placed. There's a surprising amount of versatility with this ability, and I wish more people recognized it. If the Clerics are bad, I don't think it's the Cardinal's fault, as his ability is a great opportunity to encourage you to go wild with your cards. Breaking bases by yourself is much more justifiable now, and even though the Clerics themselves don't contribute to that cause directly, your other faction might. I think that the Clerics fall into the realm of Killer Plants and Giant Ants, which are support factions that require a different approach from the usual strategies. But don't mistake this for weakness, it's an opportunity. I definitely enjoy using the Cardinal, and I get really annoyed when he makes it into play. What do you think of the Cardinal and this faction? Let me know in the comments. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.